With Sarri gone, Frank Lampard is set to become Chelsea's new manager. With the club currently under a transfer ban, meaning they can't sign anyone, and Eden Hazard out of the door, here's how Chelsea might line up next season under Frank Lampard. First off, and now that Maurizio Sarri is out, Kepa can finally become manager. Well, not really. Frank Lampard's new manager, but Kepa will definitely be the number one. There is no way you spend so much money on a young goalkeeper and don't make him your number one, especially when he's so talented. The keeper will surely be in the keeper's spot for the next few years at least, and with Willy Caballero, an old wily figure who can barely make the cup competitions these days, there's not really any competition for Kepa either. First off to right back, where Reece James on loan at Wigan last season had a fantastic year and deservedly will be in the running for a starting place. That will be alongside David Zappacosta, who has shown himself to be a good player, but not quite of the level of Cesar Azpilicueta. With Gary Cahill being largely out of squad for the whole of the season, the man more affectionately known as Dave, Azpilicueta took over the armband and looks to be one of the most consistent defenders that Chelsea have ever seen in his 7 years at the club, and you can expect this to continue into the new season. First up, and the centre-back I'm going for is Kurt Zouma. Now, despite rumours linking him with a move back to Everton where he was on loan last season, I can see him staying at Stamford Bridge and maybe reaching the heights that his career promised when he first broke into the first team. He then had a really shocking injury which gave other players the chance to come in and cement their place, so Zouma went out on loan to Stoke and then to Everton, as I mentioned. But now that he's back with Gary Cahill leaving, he looks like a starter to me, and he's going to be playing alongside one of two defensive options. One of them is Andreas Christensen. He's another player who had a pretty good spell at Chelsea and obviously thought that this was his future until a change of manager. Under Antonio Conte, Christensen played a vital role in his 3-5-2 formation. Under Maurizio Sarri, he barely played and was back to the edge of the squad. It's because of this that Antonio Rudiger, the new signing, had a chance to prove his worth, and he did so. And it's because of this I'm going to put him alongside Kurt Zouma. Despite this though, if Chelsea weren't under a transfer ban, I think a centre-back would be top of their list. Maybe someone to replace Kurt Zouma and play alongside Rudiger. But for the moment, I've got Zouma and Rudiger as the two centre-backs. Over to left-back now, and it has to be Emerson. With Marcos Alonso, he's provided some brilliant attacking options down the left-hand side and given Chelsea fans some excellent moments, especially from set pieces. But he is just not a good enough defender. He's been found out by some of the quicker, nippier players in the league, and his form towards the end of the last season was absolutely shocking. It's for this reason that if Frank Lampard wants to bring a young, fresher side through, Emerson has to be his guy. Into defensive midfield now in this 4-3-3 formation, and of course it's N'Golo Kante. For me, he's the only absolute superstar that Chelsea have left in the squad after the sale of Eden Hazard. N'Golo Kante does what any other central midfielder can do in the world, but does it better. He is the complete package and such an unbelievable player that even when Chelsea don't have him in the team, they really look like they're going to struggle. It was either him or Jorginho last season, and with Jorginho moved out to a wider role, his lack of athleticism was really shown. Anyway, it looks like he could be on his way back to Serie A to link up yet again with manager Maurizio Sarri at Juventus, so he's not included in this 11. In front of Kante, and I've gone for two English players, one of them who could blossom into a brilliant midfielder under Frank Lampard, and the other who definitely deserves his spot in the first team. That is Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Calls for him to be put into the squad were largely ignored in his early career, so much so that he was sent out on loan a few times. After a brilliant season at Crystal Palace, he came back to Chelsea and still didn't find himself starting until the last few months. He's really shown all his ability and everything he can do in the Europa League and has transferred some of this form over to the Premier League. He could be England's answer to Michael Ballack. He deserves a spot in this starting lineup. Danny Drinkwater, on the other hand, definitely does not. In fact, I'm still amazed that he's even at Chelsea or even in this discussion, so we'll just push him to the side for a minute. Alongside Ruben Loftus-Cheek, or maybe even a little bit further forward, I can see Ross Barkley being given a shot under Frank Lampard. Now, this is probably because they were similar kinds of player. We've all seen what Ross Barkley can do. You know he has the ability and the natural talent. It was shown at his years in Everton when he was coming through the ranks. Since moving to Chelsea, yes, maybe his confidence has drained a little bit, but things aren't too bad. He's still in and around the first team. He's still in the England squad. So under Frank Lampard, maybe he could learn a few things or two in training. If Lampard can make Barkley into half the player that he was himself, Chelsea can have an absolute gem on their hands. Alongside this, you can expect more minutes to be given to Mason Mount. The young English player was on loan at Derby with Frank Lampard, so he spent the season working with him. He obviously knows all about what he can bring to the team, and you can expect to see him get a fair few minutes this season at Stamford Bridge. Again, much like with Ross Barkley, if Lampard can help Mount on the pitch in training, then they'll definitely be seeing the rewards come Saturday afternoon, or whenever Sky decide that Chelsea are going to be playing. Onto the front line now, and I'm pitching for Callum Hudson-Odoi. Yes, he is returning from quite a shocking injury and may not technically start the season, but when he is back, he is a real handful for defenders. His ability and confidence on the ball has seen him so highly rated across Europe that Bayern Munich were willing to pay around 30 million euros for his services before he'd even started a Premier League game. A fun fact about him, he actually started an England senior match before he started a Premier League match for Chelsea. What this does mean though is that the likes of Pedro will have to take a seat on the bench right next to the Brazilian Willian. Now I know Willian is a top player. He's got brilliant ability and can change the game in seconds. He just doesn't do it consistently enough. This is the main gripe that many Chelsea fans have with Willian. He just can't be trusted to produce in the big games. Many people said this about Hazard as well, but when you actually look back at his record, that's pretty harsh for him. But talking of Hazard and his move to Real Madrid, we're going to move over to the left-hand side of Chelsea's attacking three, where Hazard's replacement is. That is Christian Pulisic. So if you're wondering why Chelsea have got a new signing in their squad, well, they actually bought Christian Pulisic earlier in January and loaned him back to Dortmund for the rest of the season. This was way before the transfer ban came into effect. Unfortunately for Christian Pulisic, after a few brilliant years in Germany developing his game, the signings of Jadon Sancho and Jakob Brun-Larsen sort of halted his ability somewhat. That and the fact that he did pick up a few injuries. So with him moving to Chelsea and with Chelsea obviously preparing for life after Hazard, it seems like a pretty good fit. If he could put together all of his ability, his skill, his running at defenders, his speed and his eye for a through ball, I'm sure that he could be a fantastic signing for the Blues. It will be a long way though, and a lot of consistency and a lot of big performances until you can mention him in the same bracket as Eden Hazard. Of course, he is 7 or 8 years younger, so it's no real pressure just yet. To the striking options now, lastly, and we come to a player who had such a fantastic season, it's Olivier Giroud. Off the back of winning the World Cup with France, he then went on to score the most amount of goals by a Chelsea player in the European competition in a single season, as they lifted the Europa League trophy with a fantastic 4-1 win over Arsenal. Unfortunately for Giroud though, his time as a leading front man is up. At 32 years old, he really can't be trusted to carry the team forward in the next few years, and any game time that he does get will just be ruining the chance for any younger player to potentially develop. I'm not saying he's obviously not going to play at all. He's a good plan B to have off the bench, and he did link up brilliantly well with Hazard. But again, if Frank Lampard's going to bring in a new, youthful, energetic Chelsea, he can't be doing with a 6'4" Olivier Giroud up front, who really has the turning circle of a milk float. Apart from this, there's Gonzalo Higuain, who nobody really knows what's going on with him at the moment, and he had a shocking half of the season after he was brought in on loan. So for me, I'm going to go yet again for another English player, Tammy Abraham. Now, I'm just not picking these because they're young English players, but I think he's really deserved it. And with someone like Frank Lampard knowing the club, knowing the English system, and knowing the Championship, you could see why he'd go for Abraham up front. He's earned his stripes in the England under-21 squads and on loan with Bristol City and Aston Villa, with whom he got promoted last season. So I can see no reason why Lampard would hesitate in putting him up front. But of course, it's not up to me, it's definitely up to Frank Lampard, but I want to know your thoughts. Let me know all of them in the comment section down below. Who would you have starting up front? Would you really give Ross Barkley another chance? And what can Chelsea do this season? Will they be able to get into the Champions League again? And will they actually cause some waves in the competition itself? Of course, whilst you're down there, you can also smash the like button. But until next time, I will see you guys later.